First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
I want to start this new year, with hope. I have wrestled with the question of what hope is. Hope is listed with faith and love as the three theological virtues, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians. And now faith, hope, and love remain these three, and the greatest of these is love. In the Christmas season, we often see peace and joy added to make five: peace, hope, faith, joy, love. What is hope doing on this august list? If hope is wishful thinking, simply a wish for something to happen in the future, I don't see how that warrants being in there with peace and love and joy. The 17th century Dutch-Portuguese Jewish philosopher Baruch Spinoza said that fear cannot be without hope, nor hope without fear. I think he meant that hoping things get better involves fearing that they might not, and fearing things will get worse involves hoping they won't. It's basically the same feeling. It's worrying about the future, whichever word we use for it. Whether we call it hope or fear, it's a function of living in the future instead of living in the present, and also entails a certain judgmentalism. Things should be this way and should not be that way. It's non-acceptance. In Buddhist teachings, it's called attachment if we want it and aversion if we don't want it, and the spiritual practice helps loosen the grip of both attachment and aversion. So aren't hope and fear just other names for attachment and aversion? And then about 10 years ago, Václav Havel gave me a way to understand hope that allowed me to see it as spiritually valuable. Not personally, but I read something of his. Havel said, hope in this deep and powerful sense is not the same as joy that things are going well or willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously headed for early success, but rather an ability to work for something because it is good, not because it stands a chance to succeed. Hope is definitely not the same thing as optimism. It is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but certainty that something makes sense, regardless how it turns out. End quote. I like that. Hope is understanding that things make sense. This life, this existence, this earth and cosmos, it all has a sense to it. It is not meaningless. So despair, the opposite of hope, is the pervading feeling of meaningless. And that makes sense to me. And after a number of years of preaching Václav Havel's line, whenever the topic came up, that hope is the certainty that things make sense regardless of how it turns out, I find myself this Christmas season lighting more on something Havel said a couple sentences earlier. That bit about an ability to work for something because it is good, not because it stands a chance to succeed. To work for something because it's good, not because it stands a chance to succeed. So last month, as I reflected with you on the Advent candle of hope, I said, hope is the energy that allows us to make commitments, to engage in projects that bring love and justice into fuller flower. The voice of hope tells us that there is a place in this world for our intentions. There is no certainty, no guarantees. Our passions and our efforts may never yield the results that we pursue, but we and our pursuits belong, whatever they may yield. Hope is the assurance that trying matters. Our intentions and efforts belong whether we accomplish our aim or not. Hope then is the assurance that engagement in life matters. It makes a difference whether or not it makes the difference we intended. Our energies are worth it, though perhaps in ways we cannot foresee. Even if it doesn't matter in quite the ways we intended, it matters that we did intend something, and we did act on that intent. This is hope. And there we have our introduction to our January theme, vow. It matters that we intend something, and we act on that intent. And so our question, what do you intend? In the middle of winter, let's recall the closing lines of Mary Oliver's poem, The Summer Day. Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? What is your vow? Vow is the word. Goal is not quite the right word for what we're talking about. It's fine to have goals, and in some areas of life, you need them. The thing is, when you form goals, you need to have an eye on what you have a chance to succeed at. But a vow is a commitment to work for something because it's good, not because it stands a chance to succeed. It is the direction in which you point your life, not a destination. A goal may have a time frame, expand the business X% in 2025, or lose Y pounds, or bench press Z pounds by the end of this year. A vow is the incompletable work of your life. Goals can suck you into always working for the next accomplishment, as if the purpose of life were to accomplish things. We are human beings, not human doings. We need time to just be, to appreciate the wonder of this moment, to drink in the joy we are always submerged in if we only notice that we are. Remember that before it asks its concluding question, what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Mary Oliver's poem, The Summer Day, begins with other questions. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? The grasshopper, I mean the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? These are not the thoughts of someone who is goal-driven, but they are joyful and deeply wise. We need to stroll idly and blessedly through fields all day some days, for this is how we connect with our inherent wholeness and completeness, how we release the demons that tell us we are never enough and never sufficient. And at the same time, there needs to be a rhythm in our lives. We then bring back that grounding from the field into our daily work. Mary Oliver's work was being a poet, bringing to the world the insight and the joy that a poem can bring. Her idle stroll was the grounding for her to give the world this poem, one of her most beloved. So from the grounding in your human being, what sort of human doing particularly calls to you? What will you vow? You must know that you are enough, that you are whole, and you are perfect just the way you are. And that is not easy to know. Our culture is so oriented toward accomplishment. We are bombarded with the constant message to do more and get more, to undertake to really know the truth that you are whole, complete, and perfect exactly as you are is deeply subversive and countercultural. And if you do glimpse this truth for a moment, the insight quickly slips away again. Re-remembering it is the ongoing work of the rest of your life. You need to know that you are enough. And second, you need to serve. Serve something higher or wider, bigger than yourself. But since serving is also a path to remembering your inherent wholeness and sufficiency, let us say that the rhythm is one of inner work and outer manifestation. There needs to be that rhythm in our lives. We cannot bring the wholeness of ourself forward to bless the world unless we are engaged also in growing deeply familiar with who we are. The great Christian theologian Howard Thurman, born 1899, advised that you not ask what the world needs, but ask instead what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. What I'm saying is that the ongoing process of coming alive has a rhythm. The inner work, which might look like meditation or might look like idling in a field all day just noticing stuff, and the outward manifestation, which looks like service. Finding your rhythm might not be easy. Another writer, coincidentally born the same year as Howard Thurman, E.B. White, commented on this difficulty. He said, "I arise in the morning torn between a desire to improve or save the world and a desire to enjoy or savor the world. It makes it hard to plan the day." The rhythm of savoring the world and saving the world can be challenging, but keep at it. You will get the hang of it. We'll have now our interlude, something about rhythms. It was a little over a year ago in December 2023, I gave a sermon here called "What is Your Great Vow?" Some of you might remember. I talked about the wisdom of recognizing that you're not in control, and I mentioned Benjamin Libet's experiments in the mid-1980s that showed that the motor signal is heading to the muscle several hundred milliseconds before we become conscious of it. We have already begun the action before the apparatus of conscious decision-making comes online. For most of day-to-day life, consciousness is not deciding what to do. Consciousness's job is to come along after the fact, notice what we are doing, and make up a story about how that's what we meant to do. All day long, it's going, I meant to do that. Oh yeah, I meant to do that too. But the meaning to do it trails behind the beginning of doing it. Our brains create a running commentary on what it notices we are doing, even though the interpreter module has no access to the real causes of our motives, of our behavior. It seems to you that your intentions precede and determine your actions, but this is an illusion. Why then do we even need to be conscious at all? One plausible suggestion offered by Janet Kwasniak is that the conscious feeling of intent is simply a marker indicating that we own the action. This marker is very important so that our episodic memory shows whether actions were ours or just happened. The memory of an event that came from me influences my neurons for the future. We do learn from our actions and their results. If I get a pain from something I did, my neural wiring makes it less likely to do that again. But if the pain just happened, it was apparently not a result of some particular behavior of mine, then the effects on my wiring are different. What we call volition is not a generator of our behavior, but only a perception that a behavior is ours. This illusion that intentions precede and determine action then arose as a byproduct of the way the brain learns from experience. Conscious brain has no idea what's going on in the subconscious, so conscious brain just makes up a story. And yet, the subconscious is listening to that story, and it starts taking it into account. It listens with a skeptical ear at first, but if the story is referenced repeatedly, the subconscious wiring adjusts. Say one time you did a favor for someone. Maybe you did it for purely self-interested reasons, but you happen to have been asked why you did it. And so you fabricated a story, not from any intent to deceive, but because it's the job of conscious brain to invent rationalizations. And say your story was that you care about the well-being of others. Well, subconscious brain was listening to that story. It was not entirely sure whether to believe what it heard, but it made a note, a sort of little, huh. But if it so happens that you have other occasions to tell that story about yourself, then the story gets reinforced a little more. What began, as all our explanations of our behavior do, as an after-the-fact rationalization, can eventually become an actual driving force. And you can give thought beforehand to the sort of story that you want to tell. What is your vow, your mission in life? This is the story you can train yourself to follow, can build into an unconscious habit of action. The first task is to discern your vow. Take your time, reflect on it. Zen teacher Jan Chosen Bays writes, "You cannot discover your vows by thinking. Your vow lies within you." It lies within you. How can you bring it out, become aware of it, articulate it, make it conscious? You can't just think it out, Chosen is saying. There are some exercises included in this month's vow packet. These are exercises I've selected and adapted from Chosen Bays' book, The Vow-Powered Life, a simple method for living with purpose. These are exercises for exploring yourself, your background. What sort of sense of the purpose of a life did you pick up from significant adults in your life as you were growing up? What strong reactions against the behaviors of significant adults helped form you? What tragedies or injustices made a powerful early impression on you? Who were the heroes in your childhood, in youth, in young adulthood? And what were the values they represented? How would you want to commit to serving the world if you knew you had exactly and only 5 years to live? Thinking about the mission statements of businesses, what mission statement might you make for the business of you? Exploring these questions, what overarching primary vow seems to emerge? These exercises and write-ups about each exercise are in the packet. Each of them asks you to do some writing. I recommend handwriting it in your journal or on a legal pad or notebook paper. There's something a little more potent about seeing it there on the physical page in your unique handwriting that came from your unique body. It'll also help to share the process with others. You'll have a chance to do that in your connection circle this month, and it's not too late to sign up to be in a connection circle. And if you're not in one or don't make it to your connection circle this month, find others to share it with. When you articulate what feels like the great vow of your life, repeat it to yourself every day. For instance, I am here to love and understand this world and the beings in it, that thereby they might be helped to grow in understanding and love. That's mine. Whatever yours turns out to be, once you have it, use it. Repeat it to yourself and use it to explain to yourself why you did the things that you do. Let it be the compass needle that points your way. It is a direction, not a destination. Subconscious brain will be listening to that story. I wrote this sermon and have now delivered it because I am here to love and understand this world and the beings in it, that thereby they might be helped to grow in understanding and love. What starts as after-the-fact rationalizations can gradually become a true habit of action. And you and the world, as if there were a difference, will be better for this. May it be so. Amen.